President Trump speaking today at noon from the White House, all about impeachment the day after. Joining us now, Marc, Chief of Staff to Vice President Pence. Marc, I'm kind of joking here, but I'd like to see the president literally rip up the articles of impeachment. What do you say?
You know, I think it's a great idea. Well, I saw the New York Post headline with the same thing, and I think that there's certainly more than enough validation for him to take the opportunity to rip them up. But he'll share with the American people his thoughts. Certainly, he's pleased to have been acquitted, and
he's going to take a victory lap. But okay, look at the other side of the coin for a second. Republican Lee Zeldin, we just showed him a couple of minutes ago. He wants to censure Nancy Pelosi, censure the Speaker. What do you say to that?
Well, I think her actions were incredibly childish the other night. I certainly welcome Lee Zeldin's perspective on that, and as far as House Republicans moving forward, that we welcome that. I think it's a decision for House to make, though. But yeah, I think that her actions were certainly childish and disrespectful to many people, not just the president.
Would you just formally censure her? Should something happen?
Well, sure, but I think that more importantly to the censure, so we have the reality that for the last several months, Democrats have done nothing but pursue impeachment. And candidly, ever since this president was elected, they've been doing nothing but trying to overturn the will of the American people. In the last couple months alone, this president's completed significant trade deals with China, with Mexico, with Canada. He's eliminated the most dangerous terrorists in the world in Baghdadi and Soleimani. This president's continued to work for the American people, while Nancy Pelosi has pursued nothing but trying to overturn the will of the American people.
Okay. Hold on a second. The President Trump is now speaking, as we speak. He's speaking at the prayer breakfast. And here's what he just said, and I want your reaction to it. He said, "I don't like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong." And he was referring there to Nancy Pelosi. What do you say to that?
I think that you know, we all I think admire people who act on their faith. I do think that there is this interesting dynamic in America, though, where when people announce that they've made decisions based upon their faith to support something like a pro-life policy, typically they're condemned by the media that say that shouldn't be part of the decision and faith shouldn't play a role. But if your faith is your excuse for why you want to impeach this president, the mainstream media celebrates that and says what a conscientious, honorable decision that is. I think that's a serious contradiction that we need to come to grip with.
Now, Senator Romney, he says that his Mormon faith pushed him towards voting for the impeachment articles, the only Republican in the Senate to do so. He said his Mormon faith pushed him in that direction. What do you think is the standing of Mitt Romney in the Republican Party today, and what's his standing before President Trump?
Well, to your question, if his Mormon faith led him to want to convict the president, I don't know if that is an indictment about Mike Lee's Mormon faith, because his fellow senator from Utah, I don't know if he's implying that Mike Lee didn't rely upon his prayer to come to his conclusion for acquittal. I think that, as McConnell has said, those decisions will be left to the Senate. You know, I think I saw the interview in your network with Chris Wallace in which he questions whether or not, you know, this president will go after him and forgive Mitt Romney. At some point, when we ask the other question, in 2012, Donald Trump endorsed Mitt Romney. In 2016, Mitt Romney led the Never Trump campaign. In 2018, he asked for Donald Trump's endorsement, and Donald Trump gave it to him for his Senate race. And as soon as he comes to Washington, he writes an op-ed in the Washington Post about how he's going to oppose this president. So at some point, we have to ask the question, who's not giving forgiveness here?
Well said, well said, well said. Marc, thanks for being with us. We're walking up towards this 12 noon extravaganza from the president. I can't wait. Marc, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
See you soon. Thank you.